Dr. Zephyr Caney adjusted her glasses as she stared at the massive holographic display floating above the research station's main console. The image showed a sleek, crystalline structure drifting silently through the void of space, its surface pulsing with ethereal blue light. After 3 months of careful observation, humanity had finally made contact with an alien vessel. The ship belonged to a species that called themselves the Veiltar, beings of incredible intellect who had been studying various civilizations across the galaxy for millennia. Their appearance was striking yet unsettling. Tall, slender figures with translucent skin that seemed to shimmer like water, and large, dark eyes that held an ancient wisdom that made humans feel like children in comparison. Captain Marcus Chen stood beside Dr. Kane, his weathered face reflecting both excitement and caution. The first diplomatic meeting had gone surprisingly well. The Veiltar had been polite, even friendly, sharing basic information about their culture and technology. They spoke of peace, of mutual understanding, and of the beauty they found in studying different species across the cosmos. "They seem almost too perfect," Captain Chen murmured, watching as the alien ambassador, who had introduced himself as Observer Prime Velthran, glided gracefully through the station's corridors during his tour. Advanced technology, peaceful intentions, genuine curiosity about our culture. It's like meeting the ideal alien species from every science fiction story ever written. Dr. Caney nodded, though something nagged at the back of her mind. During their conversations, she had noticed how the Veiltar's eyes would occasionally glaze over, as if they were receiving information from somewhere else. When she asked about it, Velthran had simply explained that his people maintained a constant connection to their collective knowledge network, sharing observations and insights in real time. The research station buzzed with activity as teams of scientists worked around the clock to document every aspect of this historic first contact. Linguists analyzed the Veiltar's complex language, which seemed to shift and flow like music. Anthropologists tried to understand their social structure, which appeared to be based on observation and knowledge rather than traditional hierarchies. Engineers marveled at their technology, which seemed to blend seamlessly with organic materials. But it was Dr. Sarah Martinez, the station's lead psychologist, who first noticed something disturbing. "There's something they're not telling us," she said during the daily briefing, her voice carrying an edge of concern. "Every time I mention human creativity, art, or imagination, they change the subject. It's subtle, but it's there." Dr. Kane looked up from her notes. "What do you mean exactly?" "Yesterday I was showing Velthran some of our cultural artifacts, paintings, sculptures, music recordings. He seemed fascinated by the technical aspects, the brush strokes, the mathematical principles behind the compositions. But when I tried to explain the emotional inspiration behind them, the dreams and visions that drove the artists to create, he became uncomfortable." Captain Chen frowned. Uncomfortable how? His translator started malfunctioning. "He claimed there were concepts that didn't translate properly into their language, but I've been studying their communication patterns, and their language is incredibly sophisticated. There's no way they don't have words for imagination or dreams." Dr. Caney felt that nagging sensation grow stronger. She had noticed similar patterns during her own interactions with the Veiltar. Whenever humans mentioned their aspirations, their hopes for the future, or their ability to envision things that didn't yet exist, the aliens would redirect the conversation to more concrete, observable topics. That evening, Dr. Caney found herself unable to sleep. She wandered through the station's observation deck, staring out at the Veiltar ship floating peacefully nearby. The vessel's bioluminescent patterns had shifted to softer hues, suggesting their equivalent of a rest period. As she watched, she noticed something strange. Faint energy readings were emanating from the alien ship, directed toward the human station. The readings were barely detectable, operating on frequencies that their sensors almost missed entirely. It was as if the Veiltar were conducting some kind of passive scan. Dr. Caney quickly accessed the station's monitoring systems, running a detailed analysis of the energy patterns. What she discovered made her blood run cold. The scans weren't focused on their technology, their biology, or their cultural artifacts. They were concentrated on the crew quarters during sleep periods. The aliens were somehow monitoring their dreams. She immediately contacted Captain Chen and Dr. Martinez, calling an emergency meeting in the station's secure conference room. The three of them huddled around a small holographic projector as Dr. Caney displayed her findings. "They're not just observing us," she whispered, her voice tight with concern. "They're studying our sleep patterns, our brain activity during REM cycles. They're watching us dream." Dr. Martinez leaned forward, her face pale. "That explains their discomfort with discussions about imagination. They're not studying our waking thoughts. They're analyzing our subconscious minds." Captain Chen's jaw tightened. "The question is why? And why are they being secretive about it?" Before anyone could respond, the lights in the conference room flickered. The holographic display wavered, and for a moment they could have sworn they heard a faint whisper in the air, not spoken aloud, but somehow transmitted directly into their minds. The whisper carried a single word, repeated over and over. "Stop!" Dr. Kane's hands trembled as she checked the station's systems. Everything appeared normal, but she could feel a presence, something vast and alien pressing against the edges of her consciousness. "We need to be very careful," Captain Chen said quietly. "If they've been monitoring our dreams, they know more about us than we realize. They know our fears, our hopes, our deepest secrets." Dr. Martinez nodded grimly. "And if they're trying to hide this from us, it means they've learned something they don't want us to know they know." As if summoned by their conversation, the communication system activated. Observer Prime Velthron's voice filled the room, calm and melodious as always. "Honored humans, I hope you are resting well. Tomorrow, we would like to discuss expanding our cultural exchange. We have observed many fascinating aspects of your species that we would like to explore further." The three humans exchanged uneasy glances. The word "observed" carried new and terrifying implications. Dr. Caney reached for the communication device, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Of course, Observer Prime. We look forward to continuing our discussions." After the transmission ended, the three of them sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Outside the conference room windows, the Veiltar ship pulsed with its strange light, beautiful and alien, and suddenly very threatening. Dr. Martinez finally broke the silence. "What if they're not here to study us for peaceful purposes? What if they're evaluating us for something else entirely?" Captain Chen stood up, his military training taking over. "Then we need to find out what they really want before it's too late. But we have to be smart about it. If they're reading our dreams, they'll know if we're planning something." Dr. Kane nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. "We need to learn to control our thoughts, especially during sleep. And we need to dig deeper into their real agenda without letting them know we're suspicious." As they prepared to leave the conference room, Dr. Caney couldn't shake the feeling that they were already too late. The Veiltar had been studying them for weeks, probing their minds while they slept, learning secrets that humans had never intended to share. And somewhere in the back of her mind, that whispered word continued to echo. Stop. But stop what? Stop dreaming? Stop hoping? Stop being human? The answers lay hidden in the alien ship that floated so peacefully nearby, and Dr. Caney knew that discovering those answers might change everything humanity thought they knew about their place in the universe. 3 days had passed since Dr. Kane's discovery, and the research station had become a carefully orchestrated theater of deception. The human crew continued their daily routines, maintaining the facade of innocent scientific cooperation while secretly working to uncover the Veiltar's true intentions. Dr. Martinez had developed a meditation technique that allowed the crew to maintain better control over their dream states. Though she wasn't sure how effective it would be against alien technology designed to probe sleeping minds. Meanwhile, Dr. Caney had been discreetly analyzing every scrap of data from their interactions with the Veiltar, looking for clues hidden beneath their polite exterior. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Jake Morrison, the station's communications officer, had been experiencing unusual dreams since the aliens' arrival. Unlike the rest of the crew, who reported either unusually vivid nightmares or strangely blank sleep periods, Morrison's dreams had become increasingly clear and detailed. More disturbing still, he claimed to be seeing images and hearing conversations that didn't seem to come from his own mind. "It's like tuning into a radio frequency," he explained to Dr. Martinez during a private session. "Sometimes I catch fragments of conversations, I guess. But they're not in any language I recognize. The voices sound like the Veiltar, but they're discussing things they've never mentioned to us." Dr. Martinez leaned forward intently. "Can you remember any specific details?" Morrison's face grew pale. "There's one phrase that keeps repeating. I don't understand the words, but somehow I know what it means. They keep saying something about the dangerous ones and reality breakers." That evening, Dr. Caney convened another secret meeting, this time including Morrison. The young lieutenant looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes betraying his sleepless nights. "I've been thinking about this," Dr. Kane began, pulling up holographic displays of brain scan data. "What if Morrison's experiences aren't random? What if the Veiltar's dream monitoring technology is creating an unintended feedback loop?" Captain Chen studied the data with growing alarm. "You mean he's accidentally tapping into their communications?" "It's possible. Their technology might be creating a temporary neural link during REM sleep. Morrison could be picking up fragments of their private discussions." Dr. Martinez nodded slowly. "That would explain why his dreams are different from everyone else's. He might be naturally sensitive to their telepathic frequencies." Morrison shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "There's something else. Last night I saw images. A planet. It was beautiful, with crystal cities and floating gardens. But then—" he paused, struggling with the memory. "Then it was gone. Just empty space where a world used to be." The room fell silent. Dr. Caney felt a chill run down her spine. "Did you see what happened to it?" Captain Chen asked quietly. Morrison nodded grimly. "The inhabitants started dreaming of things that couldn't exist. They imagined technologies beyond their understanding, societies beyond their current limitations. And somehow, their dreams began to reshape reality itself. The Veiltar called them reality breakers because their imagination was literally breaking the fabric of space-time around their planet." Dr. Martinez gasped. "They think human imagination is dangerous." "Not just dangerous," Morrison continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "Apocalyptic. According to what I overheard, species with strong imaginative capabilities eventually destroy themselves and everything around them when their dreams become powerful enough to influence reality." Dr. Kane's mind raced as the pieces began falling into place. "That's why they're so uncomfortable discussing human creativity and dreams. They're not here to study us for peaceful cooperation. They're evaluating whether we're a threat that needs to be eliminated." Captain Chen stood up abruptly, pacing to the window where the Veiltar ship continued its silent vigil. "How long do we have?" "I don't know," Morrison replied. "But from what I could gather, they're waiting for something called the Council of Observers. It sounds like a gathering of multiple Veiltar vessels that makes decisions about problematic species." Dr. Martinez pulled up star charts on her tablet. I've been tracking unusual energy signatures in this sector. There are at least 6 other vessels approaching our position. They should arrive within the next 48 hours. The implications hit them all simultaneously. In less than 2 days, humanity would face judgment from an alien tribunal that viewed their greatest strength, their ability to imagine and dream, as an existential threat to the universe. "We need to contact Earth," Captain Chen said, reaching for the communication console. "Wait!" Dr. Kane grabbed his arm. "If we send a transmission, they'll know we've discovered their true purpose. We need more information first." Morrison suddenly straightened, his eyes unfocused. "They're coming. Velthran and 2 others. They want to conduct what they're calling a final evaluation session." "How do you know that?" Dr. Martinez asked. "I'm picking up their thoughts right now. The neural link is getting stronger." Morrison pressed his hands to his temples. "They're discussing our imagination coefficient and something about preemptive containment protocols." 20 minutes later, Observer Prime Velthran arrived at the station accompanied by 2 other Veiltar whom he introduced as Assessor Zarlin and Evaluator Mordep. The 3 aliens moved with their characteristic fluid grace, but there was something different about their demeanor, a subtle tension that the humans had learned to recognize. "We would like to conduct a comprehensive study of human consciousness," Velthran announced, his translator rendering his musical language into sterile English words. "This will require voluntary participation from several of your crew members in a deep neural interface session." Dr. Caney stepped forward, her heart pounding but her voice steady. "What exactly does this interface involve?" Assessor Zarlin spoke for the first time, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in their bones. "We will establish a direct connection to your neural pathways during a controlled dream state. This will allow us to observe the full spectrum of human imaginative capabilities." The humans exchanged careful glances. This was clearly the evaluation that would determine humanity's fate. "Of course," Captain Chen replied smoothly. "We're honored by your scientific interest. When would you like to begin?" "Immediately," Evaluator Mordep stated flatly. "Time is of considerable importance." As they prepared for the procedure, Morrison discreetly caught Dr. Kane's attention and mouthed a single word. "Run." The neural interface chamber was a sphere of crystalline material that the Veiltar had constructed in the station's main laboratory. It hummed with energy patterns that made the humans' teeth ache and filled the air with the scent of ozone and something indefinably alien. Dr. Caney had volunteered for the first session, knowing that her scientific training might give her the best chance of maintaining some mental defenses during the procedure. As she lay down on the organic-looking platform inside the sphere, she tried to calm her racing thoughts and prepare for whatever was coming. Velthran activated the interface, and suddenly Dr. Kane found herself floating in a vast space filled with swirling patterns of light and shadow. She could sense the alien presence in her mind, probing through her memories and thoughts with clinical detachment. But then something unexpected happened. As the Veiltar delved deeper into her consciousness, they began to encounter something they hadn't anticipated: the full power of human imagination unleashed in a dream state. Dr. Kane found herself creating entire worlds in her mind, civilizations that had never existed, technologies that defied known physics, stories that bridged impossible distances between stars. And as she dreamed these things into existence within the shared mental space, she could feel the Veiltar's growing alarm. Through the neural link, she began to sense their true thoughts, their terror at what they were witnessing, their desperate need to prevent humanity from realizing its full potential, their conviction that species like humans were cosmic disasters waiting to happen. But she also sensed something else: doubt. Hidden deep within Velthran's consciousness was a growing uncertainty about their mission. He had observed dozens of species across the galaxy, but none had demonstrated the sheer creative power that humans possessed. Where other, imagination-capable species had eventually destroyed themselves through reality-warping accidents, humans seemed to channel their creativity into art, literature, scientific advancement, and technological innovation. Dr. Kaney realized that the Veiltar weren't just evaluating humanity, they were struggling with their own fear of what they didn't understand. As the session concluded and she was gently returned to normal consciousness, Dr. Kaney found herself face to face with three deeply troubled alien observers. Their translucent skin had darkened to deep purple hues, and their large eyes reflected a mixture of fascination and terror. "Your species presents complications," Velthron admitted quietly. "Your imaginative capabilities exceed our previous measurements by several orders of magnitude." Dr. Kane sat up slowly, her mind still reeling from the shared experience. "And what does that mean for us?" The three Veiltar exchanged rapid communications in their musical language before Velthron responded. "The Council of Observers arrives tomorrow. They will make the final determination regarding humanity's future." As the aliens departed, leaving the humans alone with the devastating knowledge of their situation, Dr. Kaney realized that humanity had less than 24 hours to prove that their dreams were not a threat to the universe, but rather its greatest hope for transcendence. The question was, how do you convince a species that has spent millennia eliminating dangerous civilizations that the very thing they fear most might be exactly what the universe needs? The Council of Observers arrived like a fleet of ethereal ghosts materializing from the depths of space. 7 massive Veiltar vessels emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their crystalline hulls pulsing with synchronized bioluminescent patterns that cast haunting shadows across the human research station. Dr. Kaney stood at the observation deck, watching the alien ships take their positions around the station like judges arranging themselves in a cosmic courtroom. Each vessel was unique in design, but shared the same organic curves and translucent materials that seemed to blur the line between technology and living tissue. Lieutenant Morrison had spent the night in a medically induced sleep state, his brain activity monitored as Dr. Martinez tried to maintain the neural feedback loop that allowed him to intercept Veiltar communications. What he had learned during those dark hours had chilled everyone to the bone. "The Council isn't just here to evaluate us," Morrison reported, his face drawn with exhaustion. "They're here to implement what they call the final protocol. If they determine that humanity poses an existential threat to reality itself, they'll activate some kind of weapon that will erase our entire species from existence." Captain Chen had spent the early morning hours composing what might be humanity's last message to Earth, a warning that would travel across the void long after the research station and everyone aboard it had been reduced to cosmic dust. But Dr. Kane had a different plan. During her neural interface session with the Veiltar, she had glimpsed something profound in their collective consciousness, a deep loneliness that spanned millennia. The Veiltar had positioned themselves as the guardians of reality, but in doing so, they had cut themselves off from the very thing that made existence meaningful, the ability to dream of something better. "I want to address the Council directly," she announced to the assembled crew. Dr. Martinez looked at her with concern. "That's essentially asking for an immediate death sentence. They've already decided we're too dangerous to live." "Have they?" Dr. Kaney challenged. "Or are they afraid of what we represent? A species that dreams not of destruction, but of transcendence?" Captain Chen considered her words carefully. "What are you proposing?" "I'm proposing that we show them what human dreams really look like. Not through their clinical observations and sterile evaluations, but through a direct shared experience that demonstrates the true nature of our imagination." Morrison suddenly straightened, his eyes unfocused again. They are requesting our immediate surrender for processing. The Council has reviewed the evaluation data and reached a preliminary judgment. Dr. Kane moved to the communication console. Observer Prime Velthron, this is Dr. Kane. I request permission to address the Council of Observers directly. There was a long pause before Velthron's voice filled the room, carrying strange harmonic undertones that suggested surprise and confusion. Dr. Kane, the Council does not typically engage in direct communication with subjects under evaluation. Then perhaps it's time to break with typical protocol, she replied firmly. I believe there's something crucial that your observations have missed, something that can only be understood through voluntary shared experience rather than covert monitoring. Another pause. Longer this time. Dr. Kane could imagine the rapid communications taking place between the alien vessels as the Council debated this unprecedented request. Finally, a new voice spoke, older, deeper, carrying the weight of eons. I am Prime Arbiter Thelmiran of the Council of Observers. Your request is unusual. What could your species possibly offer that would change our assessment of your fundamental nature? Dr. Kane took a deep breath. The chance to understand that dreams and reality aren't opposing forces but partners in the dance of creation. Every species you've encountered that possessed strong imagination eventually destroyed themselves because they tried to force reality to conform to their desires. Humans have learned something different. We've learned to use our dreams to improve reality gradually, responsibly, and with consideration for consequences. Elaborate, the Prime Arbiter commanded. Throughout human history, we've dreamed of flying among the stars, and we built spacecraft. We've dreamed of communicating across vast distances, and we invented radio and quantum entanglement communication. We've dreamed of curing diseases, and we developed medicine. Our dreams don't break reality. They inspire us to expand it. Dr. Martinez stepped forward. If I may add to that, Prime Arbiter, our psychological studies show that human imagination is inherently collaborative. We dream together, share our visions through art and science, and refine impossible ideas into possible achievements through generations of collective effort. There was silence from the Council for several long moments. Then Prime Arbiter Thelmiran spoke again, and there was something new in his ancient voice, curiosity. You propose to demonstrate this collaborative imagination directly? Yes, Dr. Kane replied. A voluntary neural interface with the entire Council, where you can experience human dreams not as outside observers, but as participants in the creative process. The implications of what she was suggesting hit the crew like a physical blow. She was proposing to open their minds completely to 7 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, beings who had already decided that humanity was too dangerous to live. Captain Chen grabbed her arm. Dr. Kane, that's suicide. If they decide to eliminate us during the interface, they could destroy our minds directly. She looked at him with calm determination. And if we don't try, they'll eliminate us anyway. At least this way, we have a chance to show them who we really are. Morrison's eyes went wide as he intercepted another burst of Veiltar communication. The Council is intrigued. They're discussing the unprecedented nature of a species volunteering for complete mental exposure to their evaluators. Prime Arbiter. Thelmiran's voice returned. We will consider your proposal. Prepare your most representative individuals for a collective neural interface. Be warned, this process will leave nothing hidden. We will see every aspect of your consciousness, including thoughts and impulses you yourselves are not aware of. We understand, Dr. Kane replied. We have nothing to hide. 2 hours later, the human volunteers, Dr. Kane, Dr. Martinez, Captain Chen, Morrison, and 3 other crew members, found themselves in a vastly expanded version of the neural interface chamber. The Veiltar had connected their 7 vessels into a unified consciousness network, creating a shared mental space that spanned multiple ships. As the interface activated, the humans found themselves floating in a vast metaphysical realm where thoughts took on visible form and memories became shared experiences. They could sense the presence of the council members, ancient minds that had witnessed the birth and death of countless civilizations. But instead of the clinical examination they expected, something remarkable began to happen. The humans instinctively began to create together, their imaginations interweaving like instruments in a cosmic orchestra. Dr. Caney dreamed of a research station where humans and aliens worked side by side, sharing knowledge and pushing the boundaries of understanding. Dr. Martinez envisioned new forms of art that combined human emotion with alien perspective. Captain Chen imagined fleets of ships exploring uncharted regions of space, not as conquerors, but as ambassadors of peace. As their shared dreams took shape in the mental space, the Veiltar Council members found themselves drawn into the creative process. For the first time in millennia, they experienced the joy of imagining something that didn't yet exist, not as a threat to reality, but as an invitation to growth. Prime Arbiter. Thelmarin's consciousness touched Dr. Kane's, and she felt the full weight of his ancient loneliness. The Veiltar had been guardians for so long that they had forgotten how to be dreamers. Through the neural link, she shared with him the most powerful human truth she knew, that dreams weren't meant to replace reality, but to inspire it towards something better. She showed him humanity's long history of turning impossible visions into stepping stones toward progress, always building on what came before rather than tearing it down. The interface session lasted for what felt like hours, though the external time measurement showed only minutes had passed. When the humans were finally returned to normal consciousness, they found themselves facing 7 Veiltar Council members whose translucent forms had shifted to colors none of them had ever seen before. Deep golds and silver that seemed to radiate warmth rather than the cool blues and purples they had grown accustomed to. Prime Arbiter. Thelmarin spoke, and for the first time his voice carried notes of wonder rather than judgment. In 10,000 years of observations, we have never encountered a species that could teach us something new about the nature of consciousness itself. Your dreams do not seek to dominate reality. They seek to dance with it. Dr. Kane felt tears streaming down her face as she realized they had succeeded in ways she hadn't dared to hope. The Council of Observers hereby reverses its preliminary judgment, Prime Arbiter Thelmarin continued. Humanity will not only be permitted to continue its existence, but we formally invite your species to join us as partners in the observation and guidance of developing civilizations. Velthron stepped forward, his form now radiating that same warm golden light. Perhaps it is time for observers to become dreamers once again. We have much to learn from each other. As the Veiltar vessels began to reconfigure themselves around the research station, no longer as judges but as allies, Dr. Caney looked out at the stars with new eyes. Humanity's greatest strength had indeed been their ability to dream, but the real victory wasn't in proving that their dreams were safe. The real victory was in teaching an ancient species that dreams and reality weren't enemies. They were partners in the infinite dance of creation that connected every conscious being in the universe. And somewhere in the vast network of the Veiltar collective consciousness, new dreams were beginning to take shape. Dreams born from the marriage of human imagination and alien wisdom. Dreams that would reshape the galaxy in ways that neither species could have achieved alone. The age of observation was ending. The age of collaborative dreaming had begun.